Welcome to Big Points, the F1 podcast, all about our Constructors Sweepstake Championship. We've got Sam back on the pod and Dan, one of the architects of the Constructors Prediction F1 game. Dan, it's your debut on the pod. How are you doing, mate?
Not too bad, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, good to be here. Looking forward to giving some biased opinions on this week's racing and hopefully winning some constructors and some drivers to give me better results next time.
Well, Sam's got McLaren on. Who are you? If you nail your colours to the mast, as I asked everybody to do on their first, on their debut on the pod, nail your colours to the mast, Dan. Who are you supporting?
I'm a Lewis Hamilton fan, which now means I'm a Ferrari fan, which I used to mock Ferrari fans, and now I'm just crying every weekend, breathing in that hopium that kind of seems to drive the Scuderia. And every weekend, I believe it's going to go well, and even into the last lap, sometimes we believe, and then it all comes apart. So
the hope is always there. Well, aside from Italian fans, everybody's been struggling so far this season, but they've been enjoying things because Kimi Antonelli is the guy we're here to talk about. He won in Miami. He's won 3 in a row, all from pole position. Sam, what can you say about this rocket start to the season from the youngster?
Well, yeah, it's been incredibly impressive, hasn't it? I think everyone saw Kimi's potential, last season and what he could do, and what he was able to deliver in a car. But I think Mercedes are at the, clearly got the best overall package in terms of a constructor. He's really showing his talents and putting a real marker down to the rest of the field to say, this might only be my, second year in Formula One, but at the moment, he's the man to beat, and he's been incredibly impressive. I mean, for someone who's, what is he, 18? Is he 19 yet? I'm not too sure.
19
but
now.
19,
he wasn't born when Alonso was winning his titles.
I mean, that's astonishing, isn't it? I mean, that's just crazy. It's absolutely grand. I think he's still got maybe a few exams at school left to complete as well. But I mean, everything he has done in the first 4 races that we've had has been mighty impressive. Miami was had some incredible stats to go along. Broken some records. First F1 driver in history to turn his first 3 career poles into wins. So that is something that he can hang his hat on, and also first 3 career poles in consecutive Grand Prix, and the only other 2 people to do that are Senna and Schumacher. So that is esteemed company to be in. So yeah, a mighty impressive start from Kimi.
Yeah, you said we saw the potential last year. I would say I thought this might be 2 or 3 years away, not 2 or 3 races away in terms of the potential that he showed last year, in fairness. Dan, have you been shocked by just how well he's settled into this season?
Yes and no. I mean, I think I agree with you. I don't think I finished last year's season thinking, cool, we're going to see an Antonelli world champion, or even Antonelli leading the championship. But I think if we look back at the beginning of the season last year, when there was hopes that McLaren were going to take the Constructors' Championship and the Drivers' Championship, and then I think most people assumed that was going to be Norris. And then Piastri, at the beginning, started leading, apart from Australia. Maybe less said about that, the better. But I think Piastri, without kind of that pressure, was allowed to bloom, and I think did really well. And I think that's what we're seeing here with Kimi, is he's a 19-year-old who I think doesn't really seem to be having any stress, any pressure on him yet. And maybe we'll comment on that in a little bit, but he's just doing what he loves, doing what he's good at, which is racing. And then you kind of flip to the pressure you see George Russell, who's the other driver of the Mercedes, and I think he's feeling the pressure of being in a car which has the capability to win the Constructors and Drivers' Championship, but just has everyone saying you should be the one winning. And I think that's getting to him, is at least my interpretation of it. Maybe George would say otherwise, but you look at the pressure when he's being interviewed compared to Antonelli, who's just, I think, I don't want to patronise him, but he's a kid having a great time, right? And he's loving it. So
It's a bit reminiscent of the first couple of years of Hamilton. I know he was really involved in championship battles straight away, but still, when you look at then the next sort of 4 or 5 years from Hamilton, he was driving with such freedom then in those first years. And yeah, maybe we are seeing a bit of that now with Antonelli. He doesn't know any different. He just goes for it. How has he ended up with the win though in Miami? Another poor start, but he clawed his way back and just about had the pace. Did he deserve to win it?
I would say so. I mean, it was very close between him and Norris. I think McLaren might look at this as a slight missed opportunity in terms of winning the race and allowing themselves to sort of be undercut, by Kimi in that pit stop window. I mean, obviously, Kimi pitted first, and then his outlap was astonishing. Like, it's absolutely which got him ahead. But these are split second decisions that you're taking in a high pressure situation. So not but I think you could tell from Norris's radio at the end of the race, he thought that was definitely one to put in the one that got away category. But having said that, Kimi had a decent, sort of phase 1 start, but then he got a little bit bogged down in that sort of what they call like phase 2 start, but and then eventually dropping to third, but it just didn't seem to to phase him at all, and he battled his way back, and at the end of the he did everything he needed to do at the end of the day to win the race. So I think another deserved win, but maybe one that McLaren will look back on and go, that could have been ours.
Yeah, he sent it wide at the first corner as well, Antonelli. Something that he's had as a bit of a recurring theme this season is the slow start, but he's kept the cool head each time to show that recovery. And you mentioned the undercut there. Obviously, it is one that got away for McLaren, but it's also owing to an incredible risk and an incredible amount of pace from Antonelli. He knew, he went for the kill at just the right time, absolutely nailed it. McLaren was saying, look, he's cooked his tyres doing that. He's gained so much time there. His tyres are just not going to work. But he timed it just right, and you've got to say he played his cards absolutely right. Maybe we saw from Norris a bit of a lack of the kind of killer instinct that he's been accused of in the past. You imagine if Verstappen were in that position, would it have ended up differently? Would we have seen some more sort of dicey racing towards the end of the Grand Prix as he goes for the win? But Antonelli got it done. What were some of the main incidents in a race, Dan, that Antonelli made it 3 straight wins?
Do you mean from Antonelli or from Max?
Oh, from anyone. Anything else? What else happened in Miami?
There's 2 things that stood out for me. I think first of all was seeing a rare Max mistake. We can criticise Max for a lot of things. I can. But I think making mistakes is generally not one of them. And that spin next to Leclerc as they went through the, I think, second and third corner is not something that I expected to see. I was looking back at the replays and just looking for who drove into him, what happened, like why did Max spin? Because he doesn't just spin cars. And everything I've seen, it was just him putting down the power too soon, almost panicking with Leclerc next to him. And I think that's interesting. It raises 2 questions for me. Is that something we're going to see again from Max? Because normally, wheel to wheel, he's going to win every time. And also, what does that indicate about or implicate about the Red Bull? Like, is it where Max wants it to be? I think we probably know the answer to that. But are there bigger issues that he's trying to get the car to do things which it just won't do? And I think that really put him on the back foot, which we then saw the bigger issue, and I think one which was kind of missed by both the FIA and a lot of TV coverage, was the Max and Liam kerfuffle. I don't know if all the coverage had this, but on my coverage it just kind of turned to Max driving past Liam, and we're like, what's happening there? Because he just dive bombed the previous corner. And I think the quote, that the phrasing that the Toro Rosso, not Toro Rosso, the racing
V-Carb.
Sorry, V-Carb.
I've got the old. I'm representing the old team here.
That's what threw me. Yeah. They said, Liam, we are not racing Max. Let him through at the exit of turn 11. Do it now, please. Which I think is quite clever phrasing from when Max had dive bombed Liam, pushed him off, but Max had also gone completely off. In my eyes, I think in a lot of people's eyes, that was Max creating an incident which he shouldn't have. But that phrasing there is implying from VCARB that, okay, that was Liam, that was your fault. You need to give that position back. You gained an advantage going off track, or however they're going to argue it. And yeah, I think that to me raises concerning questions around this relationship between VCARB and Red Bull. We've always known they've been kind of partner teams, but this is something which I hope doesn't come into play too much more, because I think it's great. I love seeing Liam Lawson and all cars in the midfield racing each other. I don't want to just see Max being promoted up positions because it's Max Verstappen in a Red Bull.
The memory that springs to mind for me was that Max was very critical of Lando Norris receiving a free pass from Piastri at some point last season, and of course he's getting free passes left, right, and centre. Not that he really needs them either, because he's such a good overtaker, but he's getting free passes from VCARB, who are essentially two more teammates in a kind of team where already his own teammate is obviously playing second fiddle. He's got another team to back him up as well. I was a bit surprised that sort of reportedly the FIA were taking down clips of that after the race. They were saying it's sort of damaging to the product because it makes Max Verstappen look bad, and he's like our biggest product. So, you know, whereas like they were happily promoting clips of Leclerc struggling and sort of cutting corners for his penalty, they were taking down clips of Verstappen sort of with a very robust move, shall we say, on Liam Lawson. And I would have thought the FIA would have to ask anyway. It doesn't really matter who it is. Don't you have to say, look, you've got to give that place back, even if Liam Lawson in this case doesn't want the place back? Shouldn't it be given back?
Well, I think that's where VCARB have covered themselves, because I guess the assumption, and they didn't, as far as I'm aware, make any further comments on it, is that if a radio instruction is coming from a team saying give the place, that's almost, I think, implying that they are taking responsibility, that whole incident was Liam's doing, and therefore the FIA don't need to investigate it any further. But as far as I'm aware, I don't think that was even flagged as an incident, right, during the race.
I
think
don't
it
remember seeing it.
Went under the radar, which is crazy for me. And maybe that's, I mean, the cynic in me would say that's why the FIA are taking down those clips, because they've been caught short a little bit there. But who knows?
Max did receive a 5-second penalty after the race for crossing the white line on the exit of the pit lane. And the fact that took till after the race was also questioned in some quarters, was it not?
Yeah, I mean that when I was watching the race and they said, you know, that incident's going to be investigated after the race, I mean it's a bit baffling to me. I mean, a lot of penalties in F1 are subjective, and you need, you know, for example, the Lawson and Gasly incident. That's an incident there which, you know, it seems that it was clearly Lawson's fault, but yeah, the stewards potentially need to hear from both teams and both drivers. But something like crossing the white line on the pit exit, that's a yes or no question. And apparently the reason that was the FIA gave as to why they investigated after the race was because they didn't have the correct camera angle. All they had was Max's onboard, which didn't show if both wheels went over the pit exit. I don't understand how you don't have a camera somewhere where it's easily foreseeable that there may be a penalty. Obviously, you know, most penalties you can't foresee because a lot of them are a part of racing. But something as simple as, you know, like speeding in the pit lane, crossing pit entries, false starts, you know, being too far forward in your grid box, these are black, you know, these are yes or no questions. So I mean and that was frustrating because a 5-second penalty for Max during the race or at his pit stop changes the dynamic, you know, of a race, rather than, you know, him getting it added to his time afterwards. So he can either try and, you know, make up that 5-second gap. Something goes, you know, if they're having a 5-second penalty at the pit stop and then, you know, one of the crew touches the car, you know, too quickly, that then leads to another penalty, which changes, you know, the outcome and the dynamic of the race. So yeah, that one was I'd say, as an F1 fan, frustrating, and just one of those ones where you're shouting at the TV, just like, why are we in this situation?
So we had, for the rest of the race, we had Gasly being punted into the wall by Liam Lawson, who apparently had a gearbox failure in the worst possible moment for him and Gasly. That was unfortunate. And we saw Gasly's normally nailed on for sort of 8th, 9th, 10th, picking up some points as well. He was looking good until he was sort of punted upside down into the wall. He's all right, luckily. The other things that stood out to me is I don't think I saw the Cadillacs or the Aston Martins on the TV all day long. I literally don't remember seeing it. I remember seeing in the build-up that Bottas had a special helmet. Didn't see that out on the track. Nothing from them. But then the last laps, it all got pretty frantic, didn't it? We had sort of some drivers closing in. We had another penalty given out. We had Leclerc binning it. We said that Verstappen's error of just spinning off on lap 1 was pretty rare. It's also rare to see Leclerc, or in fact anyone, just kind of drop it towards the end of the race when things are sort of settled in. But it was quite extreme, wasn't it? It was quite a shocking moment. You just saw the smoke sort of billowing, and then the Ferrari into the wall, and then limping home to the finish. It made for a dramatic end to the race.
It did, but I mean, something which again was interesting is, and they do it a lot. We saw Antonelli crossing the line, and we're like, cool, that's great. But actually, where was the racing happening? That was Russell and Verstappen battling to try to get past Leclerc. When the penalty first came out for Leclerc, I was like, surely it can't have been that bad. You then watch the clip back, and he just straight lines that track. He doesn't even attempt the corners. And I think it's one thing that's made me excited is that Miami hasn't necessarily been praised for being the best race course, for being the best environment for those people who've even been there, for being massively overpriced and all that jazz. But I think what it has shown is that you don't have to have necessarily the best course, the best kind of experience for the spectators who are there to still get a good race. I mean, yes, we didn't get to see the Max Verstappen 5-second penalty in the pit stop, but I think we still had quite an interesting race on what could be a rather boring course.
4 races into the season, Sam, are you enjoying the way that the racing is going?
Yeah, I think the racing's been great. I mean, there's been a lot of, talk about these new regs and the boost and the super clipping, and, qualifying has probably has definitely suffered as a result. Saturdays aren't quite as exciting as maybe they were last season, but then, last season it was close to being a qualifying championship at a lot of courses. Races were very very set in, not quite set in stone, but overtaking was incredibly difficult. But I think we had 5 changes of the lead, or maybe 5 changes of the lead in this race. We had I just watching some highlights earlier, and I think there was a bit where you had Verstappen all the way down to Behrman, like six cars going into one corner, all within inches of each other. So I think the racing's been exciting, and I think regulations that can make Miami, like Dan said, is not my favorite track on the calendar, but that was definitely the best Miami Grand Prix we've had in the 4 or 5 editions of this track that we've had now. So I think it's been good, and you're seeing now teams sort of working out. We had that message from Lando's pit wall saying at the start, just let Kimi and Leclerc yo-yo. You just sit there, let them do some yo-yoing, which is the first time I think we've heard yo-yoing, and also quite surprising the FIA let that radio message out. So I think teams are working out that there's different ways of overtaking and where to overtake, where to use the battery, where not to. So I think the racing has been exciting, which is Sundays are what we get up for as F1 fans.
Dan, is the overtaking too fake for you, or are you on board?
No, it's like if you've got a car going past another car, that's a fun overtake for me. And I mean, I complained earlier about Max Verstappen dive bombing down the middle. He is like, I can send as much like disdain for his racing style, but he makes it exciting, right? And as long as he's not crashing into people, ending up on top of Lewis Hamilton again, then like I think it's fun, right? And yes, there is. I think when we hear the drivers voicing concerns, then we need to start listening. But I think the FIA are starting to take on board Max's complaints about the issues, and we're getting towards somewhere where both the drivers and the spectators are happy. And yeah, as you say, coming back to what I enjoy is cars going around in circles and trying to get past each other. And we're seeing that. We're seeing a lot of overtakes. We're seeing a lot of close battles. And going to what Sam said about like Norris sitting off the back of Kimi and Leclerc, that's so cool to have 3 cars fighting so close for a lead that I feel that's what racing is about. And if we've got that, then I'm going to be a happy spectator.
I think there's obviously some teething problems that still need to be ironed out, but I also think there's a very human perception that like new things, change is bad. I think we default towards that. Anything that comes in and mixes things up, you think, well, it didn't used to be like that. And I think when you do look back through, the nostalgia for some of the decades of F1 is kind of misplaced, really. I'm also really enjoying this, seeing cars go past one another more frequently. I honestly don't really care that much how it happens, as long as it's not completely fake. I don't want to hear it when the drivers are saying, oh, we've got too much battery, I didn't even want to overtake him. Whereas F1, you should always want to overtake. Obviously, you don't want your car to do it accidentally, but you should always want to overtake. Like, why not? You know. And I like the fact that when a move is made now, it's not necessarily done either. There's definitely a good chance in the next laps of that being undone and being redone. And when you think sort of classic F1 clips are usually like clips of that happening, of cars running side by side over many, many corners. And it's forcing the drivers to sort of adapt in a different way. It's not easy for them, I'm sure, that the cars are so different. But I think it's producing exciting racing. And after these 4 rounds, I've got to say I'm enjoying it so far. Very briefly, obviously Antonelli, a big winner from the opening rounds of the season. We saw McLaren a little bit of resurgence. We've seen other teams struggling. Ferrari starting fast, Mercedes starting slowly. Who have been the big winners and losers from this long break? We had obviously a 5-week break. Now we've got another 3-week break. Who came back to Miami and sort of might be scratching their head a bit?
Well,
free for anyone to take.
Yeah, I mean, if Aston Martin must still be obviously scratching their heads. They've been the big disappointment of this season. You know, with Newey coming on board and all the facilities with the factory that they have at their disposal. Obviously, they're going to still be scratching their heads for a very, very long time. I think was it FP? Was it FP2 or or Q1 where I think they wouldn't have qualified. Their time they wouldn't have qualified in the F2 championship. They would have been towards the back of the grid of that. So that's not brilliant. For them, I think Williams have been a bit of a letdown as well. You're expecting big things, especially over what James Vowles has been saying over the last couple of years. That the last 2 years have been a write-off, and we're just focusing on this season. Especially with the driver pair that they've got and the Mercedes engine. I think they've been a little bit. They've been a little bit underwhelming so far, but let's hope. That was a better result in Miami with double points, so let's hope they can, continue to go in the right direction.
Aston said they're waiting. Aston said they're not even going to bring like upgrades. They didn't bring anything. They're like, if it gains us like 4 tenths, 5 tenths, it's not worth it. Which is spectacular to hear from a constructor. They're like, we need an upgrade that brings us like 4 seconds. So they're literally waiting for that. Like, they're going for some kind of Hail Mary here. Nothing really seemed to change over the break, did it? And I think the surprising one maybe for me was George Russell, because I thought he would have some time to sort of refresh over the break, but Miami didn't seem to be kind to him at all.
No, I don't think. I think in general, the thing that surprised me most was there wasn't much change, and so many teams bought lots of upgrades. I was expecting to see a big reshuffle. I fully expected that whoever qualified on pole may be a surprise. I even thought maybe who qualifies on pole might drop back and the rest of the pack overtake. But actually, I think this race could have happened 3 weeks ago and we'd have seen the same result. So that was interesting. It makes me wonder if we're going to see much progression across any of the teams this year, if they're all moving forwards at the same rate. That being said, Aston Martin's got to do something. Like they can't be driving. It's a green tractor right now, yeah. And you've got Adrian Newey, you've got Alonso driving that car. That should be a great pairing. I don't know how much longer this can go on before Alonso almost just walks away from it, right? Like it's just madness right now.
In the sense of going back to, we've had a lot of overtakes. It's difficult to know how it's going to end up. We didn't see necessarily too many big changes in the pecking order. Maybe McLaren, the big beneficiaries of the 5-week break, they looked a lot stronger because it felt like they just needed a bit of time to get settled in at the start of the season. They obviously haven't turned the championship winning car into a track to themselves, but they needed a bit of time to get it bedded in. But in terms of our job, constructors, like picking the top 10, it hasn't made it any easier, the fact that there's a lot more sort of mixing and sort of dodging and diving in the midfield. Bearing in mind, 8th, 9th, 10th are where we score our big points. Dan, I'll start with you. How was your weekend from the constructors' point of view, and who helped you out or didn't?
Oh, well, I mean, it was all going pretty poorly anyway. I had Hadjar was my 10th place, and he was the first retirement. Pierre Gasly was my 9th place, and he got dive bombed accidentally by Lawson. So I was hoping on 7th and 8th he could pick me up some good points, and I had Lewis and Franco sat beautifully 7th and 8th, crossed the line in 7th and 8th, and I was pretty happy with that until the 20-second penalty came. And when the 20-second penalty first came for Leclerc and pushed him back into 8th place, I think it was, so dropped Lewis and Franco one position out of kind of 15 points for me, I was fuming. And then, as I alluded to earlier, I saw the highlights and I was like, 20 seconds seems kind of generous. seems soft.
That is gutting though when it happens after the checkered flag like that, especially with 7th and 8th. That's a good points haul, I've got to say. I just lost Lewis Hamilton's position. That's the only one I had. So even I felt hard done by on that.
I don't talk about it too much, but I won last year in the Constructors' Championship. I won that after the checkered flag of the final race because there was the penalty added. So I'll take that. I'll take this hit this time because I think I did well last year. So
karma.
Just on the flip side of that, Dan, I lost it after the checkered flag last season. When the half an hour between, when the lights went down, I thought I was a winner, and then all of a sudden I wasn't. So there we go. Yeah, in terms of my weekend, much the same as Tom. I did have George Russell 4th, which was it's nice to pick up as and Antonelli 1st, but then I had Hamilton 7th until the Leclerc just mainlined the last lap of the race and dropped him down. So yeah. Penalties after the flag are always cruel. I think there was Spa a couple of years ago where I think I lost almost 30 points, I think, because of that. George, when the race where George won and got disqualified for his car being underweight, I think I had something like, I definitely had the top 3, and then I had something like 7th or 5th, and then 7th, 8th, 9th, something like that. Something like that. Anyway, and then everyone jumped up and play and lose all of them. You just lost all of them, and it was devastating. But
this is out of a total of 72 points, so you lost almost half of the maximum points.
Yeah.
30-something
I
points is a massive haul.
I lost more points than Russell did for finishing first because he lost 25 and I've lost more.
Yeah.
But there we go. That's just the name of the game.
I used to write Formula One previews briefly for like a betting site, which I don't really like doing. I don't really like propping up the betting industry particularly. He says as part of a sweepstake game, but they ditched me after stuff like that because they just purely looked at the results, and it was things like that. You go Russell P1 for Belgium, and then they look at the end and they're like, oh, Russell was classified 18th in the end, mate. You really got that wrong. Like what happened there? In fact, all of your predictions are way out of line. Like everybody's off base with that, and it's just like, all right, I give up on this. Now I try my hand at this game instead without great success. Anyway, those were our predictions. No huge point scorers really at Miami. Big points were rare, especially with Gasly being put in the wall. Big points are rare, but we'll take a break now and we'll come back with Joel in just a moment, who's talking all about the app which has been developed to help us make our predictions in a much more sort of smooth and satisfying way. Joel, welcome to the pod. How was your race weekend from the prediction side? Obviously, some penalties changed a few things for most people. I'm sure you didn't fail to get caught up in that either.
Yeah, I wasn't that impressed. Did pretty well, I think, overall, actually. Scored 16 points on the week, which was probably like the top quarter of the scoring. So I was happy with that. But yeah, that Leclerc penalty cost me in the reshuffle. Probably cost me about 6 points or something like that. So I was a little bit disappointed with that. But, it was an entertaining race. Book ended pretty well, and exciting to get back into it after such a long break, right?
Yeah, it was thrilling, wasn't it? Really good to watch, and actually good to see the video afterwards of Charles Leclerc and his just torpedoing straight through all the chicanes, just doing all of that stuff. It's like, why did he get 20 seconds, man? Oh yeah, this is why. For those of us who've been playing the game this season or in previous seasons, we won't have failed to notice that there is now an app for uploading everything. There's an app for putting in our top 10 predictions, our fastest lap predictions and all of that. It's like streamlined the process. The reason I'm here talking to you today is because you're the man behind a lot of that, aren't you? So tell us about what has been going on behind the scenes at this F1 Predictors sweepstake game.
Sure. I've loved this game that Johnny and Dan have put together and administered over the last couple of years, and especially just from like the scoring point of view of like rewarding the harder picks on the grid with more points, and not doing the whole salary cap situation a lot of like the F1's fantasy games do. So it kind of just started as an experiment to see, well, can I build something that is user friendly on my phone to put in the predictions? Because I feel like last season I got caught out maybe once or twice where I thought I'd done it right on like the Google Sheet on my phone and it didn't save properly, and I had like two drivers in the grid, the same driver in twice, that kind of a thing. So it started as just like a user access experiment, and then I have a bit of a software background, but that went all pretty smoothly. So then I was like, oh, well, let's just kind of build this out into a bit of an app. Took it to Johnny, took it to Dan. They loved it, very supportive. And what started as an experiment is now kind of evolving into more data insights, and now the plan is to build it out as a full fantasy app and launch it for multiple leagues next season.
Yeah,
So,
really exciting times ahead for sure. And what you've created already is coming together so nicely. It feels like a massive step forward from the spreadsheet, as you said, which was a labour of love. It was hard effort to make the spreadsheet do what you wanted it to, but now moving that into an app that's sort of made specially for us, the people playing the game. It's like tailored to what we want. What have we got in there so far, and what are you looking forward to maybe adding in the coming, I don't know, in the rest of this season, let's say?
yeah, I think, obviously the main functionality is just being able to put in your predictions, right? And so doing that in a bit of a user-friendly way, and also making like the relevant data from, the qualifying sessions, the practice sessions, the sprint sessions, all available at your fingertips in the app, as opposed to, obviously the spreadsheet had the qualifying results, but you don't see the timings. I don't know, I'm a bit of an ardent strategist, kind of really into the details. So like I'm multi-tabbing, looking at timings, see what happened in quali, see what happened in the lead up to that as well. Sprint weekend, that's also like a great piece of intel. So I think the goal to go beyond just entering predictions is the data piece. It's whether you're kind of seeing more data at your fingertips to make your decisions, and then more data insights afterwards to kind of see how it broke down and how it went for you and went for the grid. So I think those are probably the key things that we'll be working on over the next month or two with it. I think ideally trying to make it a bit more like social and fun as well. There's been a lot of great input from yourself, from others around, maybe we could work on some of the gamification aspects of it. So that's all in consideration now, and very kind of, excited to kind of make it a bit more of like a social experience as well. We know, like, if we go broader with this, it's not necessarily going to be for your Drive to Survive audience. It's going to be probably for that 10 or 15% of people who really love F1, have for a while, love the detail, the data, the stats, and getting into it. So I think you can expect more data insights, a little bit more kind of engagement, and just probably like a better user experience and a better UI. We're already kind of planning a new look for the app. So it's just kind of evolving pretty quickly, to be honest.
I've long since said that as a sort of lower midfield competitor, it would be really good to have sort of specific things, like almost like achievements that you could knock off. So although I didn't achieve much last year, I did sort of get a race win, I think, at Abu Dhabi, maybe one elsewhere as well, maybe a few podiums along the way. That I don't want to say they feel unrewarded, but it's like it would be nice to have that sort of stuff showing up. And then as you track it over the seasons, you can see, when you took your first win or like where your first win came, and maybe
Right.
some other sort of aspects of things that just kind of reward you for the mini successes, because I think a lot of us are having like a number of mini successes, but it's the players who've got this consistency throughout the season that end up in the top sort of 4 or 5 come the end of the year.
Yeah, I don't know how Andy's doing it, to be honest. That needs to be explored. That needs to, we need to get the
Scrutineers.
stewards in on that and
Yeah.
scrutineering that for sure. But yeah, no, you're 100% right. I think, that idea of having a trophy case where you can kind of, pick up trophies along the season would be a great idea. And fun for sure.
Talking about Andy, who has this like remarkable ability to be quite consistent throughout the season. F1's all about, you can look at your teammate, you can look at the other side of the garage. You were talking about getting a lot more data-driven stuff in the app. Is there any way that we can kind of, I don't know, it's just predictions. I'm not sure how you do it, but can we somehow like draw down on what other people are doing well and maybe, adapt our setups to the leaders?
I don't know how much is data-driven. I don't know how much is just psychology of people. Maybe Andy is out there is just an absolute massive data head, and he goes well deeper than I do. So I think props to him, and we should definitely get him on the pod and break that down, because I'm sure a lot of people would benefit from understanding how he's going about it.
Yeah, definitely. Do we actually get to see in the app before the deadline for putting in predictions? Do we get to see what other people have put in? Because I have to admit, I'm not the kind of person. Well, I don't. It's not really an admission. It's the opposite. I'm saying I'm the kind of person that even if you can see, I'm not going to be looking at rivals and saying like, oh, I'll match theirs so that I definitely don't lose any points to them this week. I just haven't been doing that. In fact, I've got a bit of a superstition that if I sort of imagine somebody in 10th and then I don't put them in, I'll really kick myself, sort of whatever happens. So I just sort of go with my gut feeling. But let me tell you, Joel, it's not working.
I think it's an interesting point. I think a lot of fantasy games do let you see what the opposition is doing, and then you kind of benchmark your lineup against theirs sometimes, and then you get in your own head a little bit too much about it, and you kind of start making mistakes because you're leaving guys out of your lineup that you would have put in if you didn't know that information. So I think probably for this season it'll stick to how it is, and it's a bit of a blind prediction going in. But a good question for the future, and like whether that actually changes the game too much. I think if you're just I suppose copying like if we went and all copied Andy's predictions every week, probably still not going to beat him. So you got to do something different to get ahead, right?
No, exactly. He's not even leading at the moment. So he's going to feel hard done by here that we're saying like we all want to copy Andy's things. He's going to be saying, what about the guys who are doing even better, or the girls who are doing even better? I'll never forget last year when I was desperate I wanted to put Hulkenberg third at Silverstone. I just had a vibe, I had a feeling, because he kept coming up from the back of the grid and doing really well. And I took him out, and I'll never forget it. So
yeah,
I regret that one.
Yeah, I feel like we should start measuring that metric of like, who put someone in and then took them out. Maybe the app can capture that. Biggest regret. That would be, I mean, that would be maybe too painful to look at, so maybe we don't need to do that.
At least I'd have proof, though. It sounded like I'm not convinced that everyone believed me that Hulkenberg was literally in my lineup until about 10 minutes before the deadline in third. And I think I put him like fourth in the end, so it's sort of reasonably believable. But no, he didn't help me out this weekend anyway. I had Hulkenberg 10th, and I think he was in the pits on lap 1, wasn't he? So it was. I knew it was sort of lost at that point. But
yeah.
Struggling. I'd love to see who gets the most P10s actually, and I wonder if like a tiebreaker should be done by. It would seem correct to do it by race wins, right? But maybe given that 10 is the hardest to predict and the maximum points, maybe like a tiebreaker should be decided by who has the most 10th places first.
Yeah, I mean that is definitely the hardest one to pick for sure. It'll be good. I mean, we might even have data on which one's the hardest to pick. We will have data by the end of the season on which is the hardest to pick. I'm assuming it's 10. I don't see it otherwise, but it'll be good to see.
That's a good point. I heard Dan say, come the end of last season, actually, he was talking about first retirements, and that was also extremely rare for somebody to pick that. It was basically, I think Stroll, I think maybe only about 6 people throughout the whole season had got the first retirement correct, and Stroll was responsible for 5 of those correct hits or something. It was not an easy one.
Well, I think even looking now, when you look at everyone else's predictions in hindsight of the round, you can see now that probably 70% of the field is picking Stroll for the first retirement. So, which is fair game, but
Feels
I
like a
suppose
safe
if you
bet.
get it, then everyone else gets it. So.
That's it. You're still not gaining anything. Joel, it's been really nice talking to you about the app. I'm super excited to see where it develops throughout the course of the season. Obviously, the podcast is developing. We'll try and get the podcast into the app as well. There's a lot of things that are sort of going to come together this season, and there's a lot to look forward to with this.
Yeah, no, thanks, Tom. It's great to be on, and I think if anyone's in the group is listening, would love to have more help. If you want to get involved, reach out. We've obviously got some talented people in the group. We've even got now Gus working on some graphic design stuff for the app as well. So it's all coming together. So if you want to jump on the train, feel free to reach out to me, and we'll find something for you to do.
Lovely. Can't wait to see where it all goes. That same goes for the pod, actually. Now we're going to record in sort of short segments with different people. Very much open to get more people from the game onto the pod. If you've had a good week, if you've got something you want to talk about in the race, then just hit me up and we'll get you on the pod. But for now, we have to go back to waiting, don't we? It was the long break before Miami, and then I was thinking, great, there's going to be more racing coming up. And then, of course, I checked the calendar and remembered that this was the original gap. So we got another 3-week break until Canada, I think, haven't we? So plenty more time to develop things behind the scenes.
That's it, 100%.
All right, then. Well, we'll say goodbye for this one, and we'll see you again after the Canadian Grand Prix.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.